Evening everyone. Come on in to have a bit of a chat, a bit of an update. As you probably all know, my social media channel, Fedbook, has been taken away from me completely. 3 accounts disabled this year because I was exposing the truth about the NHS, the government, and COVID bollocks. Just want to sort of reach out, I suppose. A real tough week. Paul's still in hospital, and that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the treatment and what they've done to my pal in the last 2 months. On the 21st of January, I got a call from Paul saying, "Help me, they're trying to kill me. I need you." From his wife, his daughter, and his brother. His son, sorry, daughters. You know what I mean, right? So I went down to the hospital, as you saw in the video, where Paul was being allegedly treated. He wanted to leave. Now, take the COVID away from it. Whether you believe it's real, whether you don't, that's your decision. You get vaccinated, that's your decision. I don't care. But if you're in hospital, your mum, your dad, and your granddad's in hospital and they want to leave, they should be entitled to leave. It's their right to have dignity. If they want to go and die at home, they should die at home. They took him from there, took him into ICU, put him into an induced coma, and put him on a ventilator against his will and against his wishes, as you saw in the video. So he's been there for the last 2 months in a coma. They brought him out of a coma, they put him on a tracheoscopy. So they're taking over the breathing for him. Now, my understanding is that a ventilator is only used if your lungs don't work. You don't need to be on a ventilator if you can breathe for yourself. It's a natural reaction. If you see a curb, you step up it. If you need to hold your breath, you hold your breath. You don't need a ventilator to tell you how to breathe and when to breathe and take all that bodily function away from you, which is what they've done. This last week, Debbie's been allowed to go and see Paul in the hospital. I got sent a couple of pictures. He's in a shit state. Can't talk, obviously. He's got tracheoscopy inside him. He's but he can nod. He's got his functions. He's got mental capacity. He can nod and say yes. He's trying to whisper. He's trying to talk to her. Every time she's gone in there, he's mouthed water because he's been dehydrated, been pumped full of drugs, medicines. In the last 2 months, his lungs have collapsed 5 times. That we've been told. He's got holes in his lungs through ventilation. Look it up. So the overinflation of his lungs have caused his lungs to collapse for what they're calling COVID pneumonia, which hasn't been proven to exist. COVID. The test they've used, the PCR test, they diagnosed COVID and have treated him accordingly to the white paper or whatever guidelines it is they're using for COVID. Dr. Carl Siddell in New York, back in February, March last year, I was putting the videos out, and I only learnt about one that I missed, where he got removed off of the hospital ward because he's the senior ICU doctor, and every patient that was coming in there was being treated as if they got COVID and was put on ventilators. He removed these patients off of the ventilators, opened the window, given them vitamin D. Vitamin C, vitamin D and zinc, as I've been saying from the fucking start. And once they put him into a room, took the ventilators out and opened the window, got some fresh air, because Paul's not getting no fresh air, he's stuck in a room with a ventilator down his throat. And Debbie's been allowed in to go and see him. And it was alright, semi-alright, when she first went to go and see him. But he's, the next time they phoned her up, said, do you want to come see him again? He was more sedated. Now, if you've got a respiratory illness, why do you need to be on sedation? 3 other people in the ward that Paul's on, same tracheoscopy, the guy sitting opposite him, sitting on his phone. The other 2 guys sitting up, looking around the room. Not Paul. Paul's just been sedated, heavily sedated. And the reason being is because they've said that when the sedation starts wearing off, Paul becomes difficult. Because when Paul becomes less sedated, he wants to get out of there. Because he don't want to be in there. So they sedate him some more. 3rd time she's gone in there, last week. It's even more sedated. There was a board meeting last week. Surrey, all the board, the trust directors and the executives had a board meeting. So we got 4 questions in to ask them. Debbie was in the meeting. The questions were answered by a guy called Edward Chetty, the Chief Medical Director for East Surrey Hospital, for and on behalf of Paul Hodge, whose email that we sent the questions into. And Edward Chetty answered the questions, but Debbie put her hand up. She wanted to speak. Debbie spoke in the meeting. She got to speak. The chair, Richard Shaw, said, we don't normally have this. It's normally people that have only put questions in. We allow members of the public to ask questions. Richard Shaw was deceived because Debbie put the questions in for and on behalf of her husband Paul from his email address. East Surrey Hospital know, because ever since the 19th of January, we've been emailing the hospital, and nearly every single email has been coming from Paul Hodge's email address. So he sort of fobbed her off. Then Debbie piped up, said, you haven't complied with number 1, or number 2, or number 3, or number 4 of them questions with my husband. They shut her off as soon as it got sticky. They shut the meeting down, and they said that Michael Wilson, who's the CEO for East Surrey Hospital, he'll answer the questions in private. He actually piped up and said in the meeting, it was all live streamed for the public. They have one every single month. They mentioned about the incident in January. He said, look, this needs to be dealt with privately. We'll talk to you outside of the board meeting, because he doesn't want the board, the trust, to know what's really going on inside the hospital because of his funding and all the rest of it. So we've proceeded to send Michael Wilson some questions to try and engage with him to get the answers about what's going on. And no response. Same as it has been. We've got a list of nearly 25 separate individual correspondence between when I was acting for and on behalf of Paul, to then when Debbie's acting for him, emailing the hospital. They haven't responded to one email. Debbie went to a meeting. She was going to go and see Paul again on Wednesday last week. She went to go and see him, and they said that they need to have a word with her. There's a meeting, 5 doctors. Edward Chetty was in there, bearing in mind after the meeting in the morning. And they basically said that Paul's dying. And they wanted her to sign the paperwork to say to let him go and start switching the machinery and stuff off and let him go peacefully. Well, Paul's a tough character. They haven't killed his spirit. So what they basically was doing was trying to get Debbie to take liability for ending Paul's life. Debbie's a strong character. She ain't going to have that. So because she never signed the paperwork, she went to go and see Paul. And it was worse than the last time, admittedly. But what you need to understand is that they're up to it. There's an agenda here. And I'll come to that. And what I'm going to disclose in a minute will expose that. But because she wouldn't sign the paperwork, she went to go and see him and come away. That was last Wednesday. Sorry, Thursday, forgive me. The meeting was on Thursday. The last time she saw him was on Thursday. She went down to the hospital to go and see him on the Friday. Security said, no, sorry, you can't come in. Who said? Edward Chetty, Medical Director. Today's phone call day. You can speak to him through the iPad. FaceTime him. So she went away Friday, Saturday, didn't speak to him again. And there was a doctor phoned up on Saturday afternoon. I'm not going to give his name out because for legal reasons. But he said to her, again, tried to convince her that Paul was going downhill and they couldn't do anything more for him. Debbie's already said that she wants to reduce the medication, reduce the ventilator. Obviously the treatment they've given him is not working. He's put holes in his lungs 5 times that we've been told of. All the drugs and medication, his immune system, his body can't cope with all of the pharmaceuticals that's being put inside him. Every time she's gone to see him, 3 times, 4 times in total. 4 times she's going to go and see him. Every single time she's seen him, Paul's mouthed to her water. I need water. That's dehydration, and that's what they do end of life, because they stop your brain from working because your body's 80% water. They done it to my nan. I watched it. I watched her die. She didn't die of cancer. She died of morphine, and the overdose that killed her. It was the drugs that killed her. So, that's my train of thought now. So what happened after that was that Debbie yesterday was able, after we've sent a series of emails to all parties involved, asking them for the hospital to provide the lawful basis of denying someone the right to discharge himself and go home, denying the right to not be intubated, not to be put into an induced coma when that wasn't their express wishes. Basically all the lawful basis for what they've done, denying Debbie the opportunity to be able to go and sit with her husband. Because he hasn't got COVID. They said he hasn't got COVID now. He got tested before, and they said that the reason why the damage to his lungs is because of COVID, allegedly. I'm going to skip a few bits out, but yesterday I see Paul. Debbie and Shania FaceTimed him. They allowed her to FaceTime her husband, who can't speak, can't hold his hand. I need to face the other way, I ain't going to see nothing. So he was on FaceTime, and Debbie turned the camera around while I was on the screen talking to her on Zoom. And I see Paul, and you should have seen the look on his face when he seen me. Alright, mate. I was alright, mate. Don't worry, Paul. We're working on things. Yeah, a bit I missed out. Sure, I can be forgiven, considering the circumstances. We spoke to the. We got an email on Sunday night at 23:23 from someone else I'm not going to mention, from the hospital, saying that all of the documents that we've been putting in, the request, the demands, has been passed to the head of legal services for the NHS, and they've been in contact with us. And that was on Sunday night. So Monday we're trying to chase down the communication, the details of that individual, and that's when yesterday, like I say, we spoke to Paul, and after we'd sent in the notices and said we're speaking with legal now, because that's all it's about. It's about money. It's about damage limitation. If they kill him off like they have done, like they're trying to do, then they know full well, because of the criminally medical negligence that the actions they've taken. They kill him, then to drag it through the courts, they're going to drag it through the courts the next 8 years. Whereas if they treated him correctly and nursed him back to health like they should do, because this is the COVID pathway. Let's not make any bones about it. It's not Liverpool pathway carried on. They just lost the name Liverpool pathway. Now they've got the COVID pathway. If you go into hospitals now, you ain't coming out, because they've got a criteria to meet. They've got figures to try and justify. This is really difficult. How you doing, Ted? He's told him, I said to Paul, don't worry mate, I'm sorting it. We're on it. We're going to get the meds reduced. We're going to take off all of the pharmaceuticals. We're going to get the oxygen, the ventilator pressure reduced on your lungs. We're going to get the correct vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, ivermectin, which has just won several landmark cases to treat the symptoms of the alleged COVID, and we was moving forward. So we put an ultimatum to the hospital, to the legal services yesterday, saying, if you don't confirm, we appreciate you need some more time to answer the questions about the points of law that we've raised. But if you don't get back to us by 6 p.m. yesterday with a confirmed time and date when Debbie can go and visit Paul and go and sit with him, then we're going to have no choice but go and report it to the police, because it's medical kidnap and all the treatments are against his wishes. He should have been allowed home back on the 21st. Well, guess what? Went to the police station to report the crime. The crime complaint was reported on the 22nd, 23rd of January to the police. Debbie put the complaint in, so with all the fears of what the hospital were doing. Went to professional standards. They write on their website, when you do the complaint online, they'll get back to you in 14 days. Spoke to them last night. They admitted that they never got back to Debbie at all to say that it was treated as, they can't get involved in it, it's an NHS issue, they need to take it up with the NHS. So that was last night. Debbie and Shannon went down to the police station in Reigate to go and report the crime with all the evidence, with all of the email communication between themselves, ourselves, my emails for and on behalf of the family to the hospital. That's all been ignored. And the police have turned around and said that they can't get involved. So the fact of the matter is this: it's manslaughter. The hospital are guilty of manslaughter. If Paul dies, they're guilty of manslaughter because they haven't followed any of the family's wishes. And now the police are failing to investigate the crime to make sure that they assist Debbie down to the hospital to do a welfare check on Paul and insist on the family's wishes, and Paul's wishes are adhered to. They're not only collaborators, they're co-conspirators. They're guilty for aiding and abetting and assisting by not investigating the crime. Now you might think that there's no legs in that, but if you had somebody at your property, you was holding them there against their wishes, and that person managed to phone the police and say, I'm being held at this place and I don't want to be here, the police will be round there like a shot and you'll be nicked for kidnap. And if you injected anything into them, you'll be arrested for that as well, for false medication and God knows what other charges. However, if you go to a hospital, an NHS hospital, where everyone stands out on a Thursday night clapping for them, the great NHS, if you go in there and they keep you in there, they assume that they have the power of attorney to make determinations on your medical needs without consulting the next of kin or any family members, power of attorney or not. At death camps, I've got figures to achieve, and that is why they wanted to shut me up. That's why I'm not on Facebook, is because what I was exposing, what I was exposing was the truth and what was really going on inside these hospitals. But tonight's little rant isn't about me, it's about Paul. Paul's a strong fighter. This afternoon, Debbie got another phone call from another doctor. Yesterday morning, when we spoke to the hospital said that they was all in a disciplinary meeting. And ever since that disciplinary meeting, not one doctor or nurse has contacted Debbie that she's spoken to before. And not one of them would give their surname, ever since yesterday morning. A new doctor phoned her this afternoon, back on track, saying that Paul's not very well, about letting him go, keeping him comfortable. They're refusing to accept that vitamin C, D, zinc, ivermectin is proven. He said it was all gobbledygook. So they're not going to treat him with that. They're going to carry on pumping him with the pharmaceutical chemicals they're putting inside him. And Debbie said, well, the treatment that you've been giving him hasn't worked so far, has it? So why not? You're telling me he's dying. Why not give it a try? I'm insisting that that's what I want my husband to be on. No, because they've got an agenda. They don't want him coming out of there. So I'd like to try and leave this on a bit of a high note, really, because we've got the family that are going to be seeing this, and it's fucking hard when you do all the research that I've done on all of these drugs, alternative medicines, and seeing all the reports of people coming through the other side and listening and hearing about the damage that they have done to Paul. It's not his body. He's a 62-year-old man. He's not an elderly gentleman. He's not 80 years old. He's a fit, healthy man. They've tried saying that the reason why the damage to his lungs is because of smoking. He hasn't smoked for 35 years. Your lungs rejuvenate themselves. If you have smoked for 5 years, less than that, you can clear all the crap out. Paul got a glowing report from his doctor before he went into hospital that he's very fit for his age. No breathing difficulties, no asthma. And now look at him. Paul's got to see his face yesterday. He couldn't talk, see the look on his face when he seen me on that screen. Admittedly, I've only known Paul a couple of years, nearly 3 years, helping out with his legal stuff, as you know. But he's fucking touched me because I lost my dad a few years ago, Parkinson's, dementia. I watched him slowly being pumped full of pills and drugs and medication that was making him worse. That tablet for that illness, that's got a side effect for that, so take that tablet, take that. Before you know, he fucking didn't have a clue who it was. It weren't my dad anymore. And I want to stop it doing, not just to Paul, but to everyone. They've got to stop doing this to everybody. Big Pharma has got a lot of questions to answer. So yeah, there's me Tuesday night rant. I just hope and pray we can get the treatment reversed. If there weren't such a big stink over this in the media and the hospital being under so much pressure, I've already had messages and talking to people that have been taken into hospital and put on the ventilator, and within 3 days to a week, they've been dead. Paul would have been gone a long time ago if there wasn't so much of a media coverage of this. And now they're trying to give him the slow kill, and they're trying to get Debbie to consent. to take the liability away from the hospital for doing what they've done. It's fucking murder. No more, no less. It's fucking... fucking laugh or cry. Fucking really. Well, please just keep sending your positive thoughts for Paul and the family. He's a tough cookie. His spirit is strong. It's the drugs and the fucking treatment that's fucking killing him. Yeah, that's it. Peace out.